Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the East Jersey Tea Party. Would everybody please rise?
Turn up the volume.
How do I do that?
I did it.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Steve, will you please? Thank you.
You can just bow your heads for a moment as we open up in prayer. Father God, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the rain. We thank you for refreshing the plants and the animals and just all of your creation. We thank you for this great nation in which we live in. We ask you to guide all of our leaders, give them wisdom and turn their hearts towards you. Lord, we just ask you that you would bless us tonight. Help us to make good decisions. Let us enjoy each other's fellowship, and just we ask the blessing on the food. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Steve. Well, thank you all for coming on this beautiful fall evening. And we'd like to start. We have a tribute to one of our beautiful members, Betty Bailey, who did pass away last month. Our loss, heaven's gain. If Joan, would you please come up and give that wonderful tribute to Betty that we know she well deserves.
This is just so difficult to do. Betty, Betsy, she was my sister in Christ. She was our sister patriot. She just did so much for everybody. She loved her family, her animals. It's just such a loss for us at this time, She just did so much, and she was out there all the time fighting for our country and what was right, not what was politically correct. And it's just so hard to say, she would be out there fighting for her Second Amendment rights. We were down in Trenton, she wasn't well, she was out there in that pouring rain, cold, and she would just be out there, and say, we have to do this for our country. We all should be doing this, and really doing what's important. And a memorial parade, where she wasn't feeling well and she would ride her horse, and then we would be there for service. She was always out there. She didn't want anybody to say, look at me, I'm sick. She always was out there, forefront, doing what was right in whatever she did. She loved her animals, she loved her family, her dear husband, her friends. It is just really to give a tribute to her. She was such a wonderful, dear person, and it's our loss and it's heaven's gain. And I bet she's up there telling God a few things too. She's up there telling them now. There's pictures here that we have.
We're going to pass them around. So, two of them are going around already. There should be.
There is a picture of her with our dear Governor Christie, which she takes it back. She takes it back. She wouldn't have voted for him, like a lot of us. And there's some patriotic pictures of her, and there's also the famous picture of her down in Trenton standing for our Second Amendment rights. She was just so wonderful. It's just so difficult to say goodbye to her, but definitely God has gained somebody up there, and we've gained an angel up there, and we just loved her so much. So
and
I
if
can say,
Bob wouldn't mind, Bob, to your wife Betty.
To Betty. Our patriot, Betty.
Our tears are for happiness for Betty, or Betsy. She really, I called Bob about 3 months ago saying, we miss you. We miss you and Betty, where are you? And Betty did not even want us to know. A few days prior to Betty passing away, Bob finally called me. And it was a shock. And it's a loss. It's a loss for us, the East Jersey Tea Party. And it's a loss for America. But she will always be in our hearts. So really, thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Joellen,
Yeah.
we got a question. How old was she?
She was young in heart, right, Bob? She just turned 60, but she didn't look it. When Bob told me that, I was like, I thought she was maybe 48. So that's good living, right, Bob? Yeah. Thank you, Bob. All right, we're going to do a little business. We got Steve who's going to come up and tell us what's in our treasurer's report. Please.
That's enough, thank you.
About the same as last month. How's that? Not a lot of activity, as is usually the case. We took in $196 at last month's meeting. Thank you for your generosity. We did spend $500 reimbursing and basically paying, and so now the organization owns the AV, the speakers, the materials that you see here. We've been borrowing them. And our current balance is $897.21.
That's awesome.
And that's all I have to report.
But that's a good report. Thank you, Steve. And really, thank you all, because you all have been very generous, and we hope you can continue even when Obamacare does take full effect. Okay. Well, now we got to get down to the little depressing news, the elections that took place here in New Jersey. And I actually took Virginia to heart. I wanted Ken Cuccinelli to win. And you know what? Considering the machine that he went up against, the Clinton machine, the Obama machine, the fact that the Republicans did not help him, including Christie, who would not go down and campaign for him. He did okay. He only lost by two and a half points, I think it was, so he'll be back. And I know I'll be supporting him in the future. Lonigan, God bless him. He did much better than Joe Carrillis did. He only lost by 11 points. I'm sorry?
That's good.
That's great. He did very well, thanks to the Tea Party here in New Jersey. That rally was awesome. How many of you went to the rally in Jackson? It was a great rally. I didn't get to see Sarah Palin. I heard somebody here got an autograph. Joe got an autograph, right, Jimmy? Joe got an autograph?
I didn't.
No, not you. Joe from up north. Anyway, yeah, he got an autograph. But all of them were great. Sarah Palin, Mark Levin, and Steve Lonigan himself. We had a couple of people here who worked. Lynn worked for him, and Camille worked for the rally. So I think Steve, he says he's done, but I'm sure there's a plan for him in the future too. As far as the election Tuesday that took place, well, I will say this. I didn't vote for Chris Christie. I wrote in Steve Lonigan for governor.
Yes.
Did it really do anything? No, but it made me feel better. So, disappointed again about the Constitution being changed. I know, again, many of us did our best. We got our flyers. I went to Walmart, I went to Kmart, I went to Costco, I went to Dunkin' Donuts, Lowe's, and I just handed out flyers. And I was kind of shocked that we lost, because everybody I handed a flyer out, oh yeah, I know all about it, I'm voting no. So Yeah, Marilyn.
But you have to consider, he got the majority of his votes from Essex County, Hudson County, from Camden. You have to understand that
I
he has his
know.
own following, and no matter what we did for Lonigan.
No, I'm talking about the constitutional number 2.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
we're still on Lonigan.
No, as much as I love Mr. Lonigan, there's only so much you can say, you know?
No, I thought you were still on
No.
Lonigan.
So, my point I'm trying to make though, we're not gonna win all the battles. Seems like we're not winning any right now. But the more we educate, that's one common core that, no pun intended, one common core that we need to keep emphasizing. The more we educate the people, the better opportunities we have at winning the election. I was just speaking with Steve, and Steve made some very valid points. Most of these people vote on touchy-feely considerations and not thinking long-term. We got to start getting these people, in fact, Terry, Joan, Lynn, everybody had the same thing tonight. We got to get the people to start thinking long-term and not touchy-feely. So, all right, well, we have a guest speaker tonight. And actually, I'd like Dan to come up and introduce him. Please. Por favor.
You're talking Amnesty.
I wasn't prepared for this, but what the heck. Greg Wojin from English Town, right? Is going to speak about Common Core. I believe he's a retired data...
No. Working till I die.
Working till he dies. He's going to work till he dies like everybody else in here, because I guess we all have to pay taxes. Not everybody does, but Greg Wojin, please. Common Core.
So to get the mouse situated over here, we're waiting for our Vietnam vet to fire up the screen. Thank you there. Let's take care of that. We're going to do a little technical corrections here.
He's a World War I vet. You got that wrong.
Oh, okay. We're just waiting for the screen to pop up. Well, while we're waiting for that, I want to thank everybody for inviting me here tonight. It's part of the reason why I'm here is not necessarily as a councilman from Englishtown. I'm here more as a concerned parent and a concerned citizen, because these are issues and this is a situation that affects all of us, whether you have kids or grandkids or whether you're just a taxpayer, which we all are. And I stumbled upon this, the data mining that's going into all this. I knew that I wasn't happy with the Common Core curriculum as a parent. I don't like the way that they whitewash history in the schools. Let's take, for example, you group of people here. I don't understand why in a public school system they'll teach students about the 14th Amendment, but they won't teach the students that the Democratic Party blocked the 14th Amendment. They'll teach students about women's suffrage, but they won't talk about that the Democratic Party blocked the right for women to vote for 50 years following the 14th Amendment. They'll talk about Jim Crow laws, but they won't talk about the fact that Democratic President Woodrow Wilson was the one who started the Jim Crow laws and led to the mass firings of African Americans from the federal government, segregation in the troops. They won't talk about, they'll talk about the Civil Rights Act, for example, in 1964, but they won't talk about the fact that Al Gore Sr. and a bunch of other Democrats blocked the legislation repeatedly. So with that in mind, you want to wonder what's going on in your schools. And when you couple the fact that they're getting pretty much disinformation when it comes from a historical perspective or a lopsided perspective, because that's been my experience, seeing some of the material that you see on the internet. And when they say that people that belong to the Tea Party or have Christian beliefs, according to reports that are on the news, that members of the armed forces can't contribute on their off time, exercising their conscience, or exercise, whether it be religious, whether it be political, as long as you're not supporting the violent overthrow of the United States government, I don't understand where these ideas are coming from. but they're ideas. And I guess you all saw the movie, or if you did, whether you did or not, but you know, the phrase was ideas are bulletproof. And they can't stop the ideas, they can't stop the ideas of liberty and the common bond that brings us all here. Yes, ma'am?
What are you saying that the armed forces isn't allowed to do?
There's been a number of reports, you can go on Google, that the Department of Defense, particularly the Army, was saying that they do not want soldiers contributing to evangelical Christian groups or to Tea Party, and that they would be threatened with court-martial under Article 15 of the Uniform Code of Military Justice. And I'm not making this up. This is, and so this is very interesting. I mean, we're getting a little bit off subject, but it troubles me as a Navy veteran when you see on the news that 200 senior officers from the Navy, Air Force, Marines, and Army have all been fired. And this is just over 100 Navy officers, in particular the admiral in charge of nuclear forces for the Navy. This is a very disturbing trend. You can look back to other historical incidences where certain incidents like this happen, and you can draw your own conclusions. But for me, it bothers me because it's not the same military concept that I experienced. It certainly wasn't the one that you did either. So anyhow, like I said, I'm here mostly to talk about this. If we can just fix this just a touch. We're listing a little bit to port there.
Other port.
That's it, your other port.
That's good as it's gonna get.
Okay, there we go. Let's just straighten this way out. We're going to switch this. We can switch the slideshow.
Yeah, go ahead and do it.
Where is? Oh,
It's up at the top, you can't see it.
no, I can't. Can you use your finger mouse there? It's on your pad.
Right, get it now.
Okay, slideshow. Okay, here we go. All right, perfect. Thank you. My daughter comes home from school and she gives me a form, and it says, you know, please sign this consent form, and it deals with, you know, good student policy. You're not going to abuse your library privileges. You're not going to use the school's computers to do bad things, which my daughter won't. She's a straight A student, honor roll, thank God. But then I started reading about the inclusion of what they call directory information. Now, being an IT guy for 10 plus years, 15, 20, longer than I want to know, the point is I started digging into just what do you mean directory information? And this is what I found out. First of all, we just got to change this a little bit. I'm sorry. We have to just adjust this just a touch. Is there any way of shrinking that just a touch there, sir? There we go. We're good. Okay. Well, anyhow, recent changes to the federal regulations. They negatively affect the rights of the parents regarding what they can know about what sort of data they're collecting on their students. And of course, everybody knows Common Core is the latest federal program, and they entice the states. When they tell you it was voluntary, it's not. And I'm sure a lot of you people know that. They were lured with money, lots of money. And like you were reading probably or hearing in the newspapers or in the press that there are obviously privacy violations and obviously violations of the 10th, 5th, and even the 4th Amendment of the Constitution. Now, Common Core mandates what's called a longitudinal database. We're going to talk about some technical terms. I'm trying not to put you to sleep. But the longitudinal database basically says that the way they have it set up, that they're going to start tracking names, attendance records, disciplinary histories, home email addresses, phone numbers, test scores, medical information. And this data can be served with government agencies and private companies without parental consent. Now, the New Jersey Department of Education reports that the Common Core standards, they're going to align their database to the federal standards, and it should be online by 2015. The strange thing, if you go into the federal code, you'll find out under 20 U.S.C. 1232, there's a law that says protection of student rights. And what they're doing via Department of Education policy fiat negates federal law. Now, I see a conflict there, and everybody here is obviously more than astute on what trumps what. But they're going ahead with it anyway, regardless of our objections. Well, what's behind Common Core? We found out, and I'm sure you folks have read also, the federal government's supplying billions of dollars to adopt Common Core through the U.S. Department of Education, The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, they technically sit on the board of what's called In Bloom. It's a private organization that's going to be processing all the data about your kids and grandkids when this goes into effect. Rupert Murdoch is running Amplify. This is a private company that's going to administer the state-run tests. We all remember the standardized tests we did as kids, with the paper, you fill in the blank. They cost about $10. Well, the computerized versions are going to cost you about $30+. Something they didn't, forgot to tell you when they put this in. Yeah, yes indeed. Now, 46 states, like I said, adopted Common Core, but of course, once you took the bait money, is what I'm going to call it, the bait money, now the states are now obligated to spend hundreds of millions of dollars for computers, network infrastructure, hardware costs, etc., to put this into play. Now, I'm all for technology, for technology's sake, but all of these expenditures are basically being done to funnel the support businesses that are going into this. And you can see how everything starts to fall into place. Private organizations, they lobby specific legislators, they influence the policy, and then these go into effect. Well, anyhow, now the data mining is being run by InBloom. They're going to be they created what's called basically a data model, which says, these are the types of information we're going to collect. The age, the age, religious affiliation, etc., etc. And it's over 400 points of data, 400 pieces of information about every student from age 5 to age 20. So they're going to track them from pre-K until after they leave their high school. Sir?
How's that computer system working?
Yeah.
Well, everything looks great on paper unless, of course, you have a friend that you went to school with at Princeton, and she's an executive at the Obamacare website and spent $634 million of your tax money. That doesn't work. Yes, and there's going to be more money. John McAfee said that the Obama website was basically a hacker's paradise, by the way. So, surprise, surprise. So anyhow, the thing is that this is going to be, all the data they're collecting on the kids, when you read on this, I have all the links, they're in this presentation. It feeds into a privately run centralized database. Privately run centralized database. Which means that if you want to find out, you can't, because they are not subject to Freedom of Information Act laws. You have no recourse. Yes, ma'am?
If you send your child to private school.
Good thing you said that. Well, in order to receive accreditation, you're going to be forced to take the Common Core standard. So if you want your school to get the accreditation from the government, they're going to have to adopt Common Core.
Is that different than they have now?
Right now, you're free to teach whatever you want, but things are going to be changing. Whether you like it or not, unless, of course, the people get active. Now, that could be, what I just said could be misinterpreted, could go either way. But right now, as it stands, they still have to receive accreditation. So you see, once, when you have a heavy-handed federal government, and they are basically holding you hostage with either money, or if you're a 501c, they threaten to take away your tax-exempt status, etc. This is what's going to happen. Ma'am?
Then what happens with homeschooling?
The same thing. You're going to be mandated to do that.
Well, wait, they can mandate it, but you don't have to do it.
You'll have to take
way around
the tests that they do. Well, what I'm saying is that don't be surprised. I believe it was in California, they're banning homeschooling now. So, okay, I believe it's California. And then you have states like Virginia where the kids can't even bring their own lunch to school. So this is just getting stranger. But nonetheless, the point is that the information they're collecting, they share it with locals. They want to share it with local, state, and federal agencies, and it can be sold or outsourced for processing to third parties. So in other words, they're going to have all the information on your kids, and it's going to wind up in somebody's hand that you don't know about. Now, this is an actual screenshot of the website, the National Center for Education Standards. Just make sure. Now over here, like I was saying before, the NCES maintains the data model for Common Core. And this is the blueprint that New Jersey is going to follow. And as I said before, it's going to build its databases to report private student information, even though the collection of such information in survey form requires mandatory parental consent under the Pupil Bill of Rights, which is part of federal law. So, once again, they're using policy to circumvent federal law. This is another shot right here. Personal information. All of these pieces of information they're going to be collecting on the students. Baptismal or church record. This is part of the federal model. Birth certificate will be considered. They would collect this information, or could. Driver's license information. Entry in a family Bible to see, what your religious affiliation is. Yes, sir.
How do they enforce this on illegal aliens?
I was just thinking that.
Well, that's different. That's a separate set of standards.
So we should all just say we're all undocumented.
What about Obama? I mean, we don't even have information on him.
Now, please, you're engaging in conspiracy theories. What's wrong with you people?
Education's supposed to come under home rule.
Well, we'll get to that. Now, over here also, part of the data model. This is what's going to be funneling down from the federal government down. Social Security number. Okay, this will be part that they're going to want to collect. They may not be collecting it now, in whole or in part, but this is the blueprint they're going to follow. So if they're building a system that's going to collect this information, they're going to inevitably going to use it, because that's just the way things are. Yes, ma'am.
What about the opt-out forms?
Well, I'll get to that. Now, the actual data model in New Jersey also, like I said, picture likeness. A lot of you folks may have what's called parent portal, right? I can go and check on my daughter anytime during the day. I know exactly what class she's in. Her picture pops up. It's very convenient for a parent. But then it dawned upon me, so what do they do with that information afterwards? Where's all that information going? Right now it's siloed in the school where she goes to school at. But under the standard that they're going to be doing, they want to basically centralize, import all this data from all the schools to be put into a central repository. So. Also over here, demographics, religious affiliation, birth date, sex, ethnic background, learning disabilities, all this information they want to collect. And all of the, as the saying goes, I can't make this up, all this information is down below. It's all footnoted, it's all documented, so you can check all the links once we're through here. Now, also over here, right here is where, as I said, the Education Department, New Jersey Department of Education, signed up to follow the NCES model. So for $3.9 million, they signed on, and they even have the abstract here, because they want to establish you can't read this from where you're at, but it establishes what's called a P20 Data Advisory Council. That means pre-kindergarten through age 20. That's their objective. Collect all this information. And then also, like I said, and here's what they specifically said in the grant. They lack a unified data warehouse linking data at a student level, and it has prevented the agencies from easily and efficiently sharing data. By the way, in the abstract, they had typos. Your tax dollars at work. Okay. Now, over here, this is an example of what's called the FERPA form. The woman right here, I'm sorry, your name? Denise asked, what happens there? Well, this is good. You should ask that. Okay, so they want to collect the pre-K information. As I said, the federal policy or the law right now is the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act, FERPA. This is 20 U.S.C. 1232. You can get this online. Now, the public schools can follow the federal law by calling name, address, phone number, email, grades, weight, height, academic achievement. They now call this directory information. Like you can open a phone book and see my child's picture and her age. No, you can't do that. Well, they call this directory information, which now is basically available to sale for the highest bidder and can be shared with federal and state agencies. Now, if a parent wants to opt out and doesn't want to participate in this directory information, well, your child's information doesn't appear in any school production. If they're a student that's on the athletic team, wrestling, their name doesn't appear in any program. If they're in a school play, they will not let your child's name appear in that. When they graduate, their name or picture will not be included in the yearbook.
But yet they can partake in these activities. They're just not given recognition.
But basically, yeah. So basically, right. So you're a student, your child, your grandchildren, or your child basically becomes a nameless person, or just somebody who appears in a picture.
Well, on their diploma, don't they have their name?
I'm sorry, ma'am?
When a child graduates from
No, their name will not appear in anything.
No, wait. My question was, will it be on their diploma?
I guess technically, I guess you'll get your diploma, but you will not see anything listed.
No, but you get a diploma with your name on.
Yes.
That's all I want to know.
Right.
That shows you graduate.
Well, I understand that, but what I'm saying is
I know
that
what
is
you're
that what
saying.
they're basically coercing the parents into surrendering this directory information.
I think
Yes,
you're
ma'am.
excited.
You don't like Common Core too much, do you? Sounds like you love it.
Discrimination.
What's
I just
discrimination?
love it all the way.
To eliminate the name because you don't participate.
Well, then if you think it's discrimination, then my suggestion is that you're going to have to lean on your legislators, on your boards of education, to say that we're not going to put up with this. But right now, like I said, the parents have little or no choice when they opt out. Sir.
Denise and I went to the Freehold Township Board of Education,
Sure.
and we asked them, did they, what?
We had 10 questions that we asked them.
Okay.
We were not well received.
And give me an example of those 10 questions.
Cost factor, the data mining of information. I'm still waiting for May for them to get back to me.
Well, it's
Well, the one thing I wanted to get to is
Sure.
I asked them, did they present this to the parents, letting them know that we were going to be teaching Common Core? And
no
crickets were
whitewash.
unbelievable.
Yes.
Yeah, I says, don't you think the parents have the right to know this information?
Well, if you, her name escapes me right now, but there's a woman commentator on MSNBC who basically said that your children don't belong to you. Your children belong to the community.
Michelle Maddow or something like that.
Oh, no, not Michelle Maddow. Some other woman. I forgot her name, but it is.
She's not a woman.
So, sir.
Perry.
Yeah. Go ahead, sir.
Would you please repeat the question?
Oh, okay. She was asking question the woman with the pink Marilyn with the pink shirt on. She wanted to know, well, will my child or grandchildren, whatever, at least get a diploma with their name on it? Yes, but basically they won't call that person's name out at the graduation ceremony. They'll basically just get a diploma. Well, because they're just following their own policy. Remember now, it's not a law; they call it a policy.
Not a lawyer.
Well, anyhow, moving right along. Now, as I said, the goals of the longitudinal database by the state, and you can get this all online. I have all this down here. The state longitudinal data system right now in New Jersey collects over 150 student-level data elements through a web-based portal from over 650 school districts and charter schools for every student from pre-K through high school. And among these information points, it's about enrollment, graduation, transfer, special education status, etc. And over here, as I just pointed out, every piece of information goes on here. And this is, like I said, this is an actual website that says they're collecting, storing unique private information on tens of thousands, actually millions of students. Now, to give them some credit, and I did speak to the head of the data department with the Department of Education, and she emphatically said, and I checked out, how they have it set up, that the name or social security number of each student is, quote, blinded. In other words, you'd have to have like the top level admin access to actually unblind that information or be part of a quote authorized users to get access to the names and what have you, to see student data, to see records of whether it's good or bad achievements or disciplinary records and what have you. I said, okay, well I understand that. I trust her, but I don't trust who's going to replace her when Governor Christie leaves. I don't trust who's going to replace Governor Christie when he leaves, or Kim Guadagno or whatever. Right now they're doing what, and now we'll get to this in the later slide. Right now they're doing the right thing, but there's more. So anyhow, the objective, as I said, is to track every single personal academic event of every student, and it's designed to be shared within state agencies and within other states, and also the state government. And it can be done without consent or knowledge of parents and students. This information is basically, it's hidden in plain sight. You have to go digging for their papers. This is one of their papers here. It's called Entree. It's called Developing the New Jersey Early Childhood Data System. And this is a report on what they call for young children. This report basically lists the various state agencies and private entities collecting personal data. And while this isn't like, this paper does not have the effect of law, it's the blueprint that the state's following. Contained in here, for example, the state agencies are currently that collect information on students. The New Jersey Council for Young Children, the Department of Children and Family, Department of Education, Department of Human Health and Services, Department of Health and Senior Services, Office of Information Technology, Head Start, NJ211, New Jersey Association of Child Care, Professional Impact New Jersey, a private group. This is the information. This is that they're receiving either blinded data. Now, if it's a law enforcement, obviously they can, quote, unblind the data so you can see the names and other information. Well, oops, I went too fast, sorry. Now, the new changes to the FERPA law. Remember what we talked about before? FERPA changed without Congress passing a law. FERPA did, now the Department of Education, the Obama Department of Education, through an administration policy decision, said that now they're going to change, like I said, the directory information we talked about, and it doesn't require parent information. And it says here, but for example, here's something. One exception which permits disclosure without parental consent is disclosure to school officials with legitimate, listen to this, legitimate educational interests. And a school official is described as an administrator, supervisor, instructor, or support staff member, or health and medical staff, law enforcement, or a person serving on the school board. Thank you. Now, remember, well, I don't want to get ahead of myself. Think about that for a second. So basically, the database person who's working on this thing could be something that's farmed out to an overseas country, and you don't know who's got your child's social security number, name, and everything else. The potential for compromising this data, as we've already seen how other websites and other repositories have been hacked, is monumental. So the FERPA, there's the FERPA law. Remember now, it says that the following people can access without parental consent. School board members, volunteers are also included, volunteers. Contractors, private companies hired to process or sell data, which could be sold to offshore countries. Now, here's my big question. With the exception of a medical or police emergency, what legal excuse exists where people other than a principal, teacher, guidance counselor needs access to private student data without prior parental consent? Can anybody answer that question? Because I can't. I'm having a real tough time wrapping my arms around this. And I thought long and hard about it. I mean, when they talked about the entry with religious affiliation, and I asked the department head, I'm like, well, what do you need to know what my child believes in? Well, we do it for school holidays.
Oh, yeah.
I said, well, why can't you just obtain that information from the census? Well, we want an accurate count. Okay. Yeah, exactly, for Obamacare. So that's just as an example. So now, under present New Jersey state law, there are no provisions to automatically notify parents who accesses their child's records, why did they access it, and when were the child's records reviewed by someone other than a principal, teacher, or guidance counselor. You never know who's looking at what. Yes, ma'am.
What is the purpose of all this?
What is the purpose of all this?
Why is the government, wait, I want to try to get the answer. Why is the government doing this? A lot of this is already available.
It's siloed information right now. When I say siloed information, I mean each school district has their own.
Correct.
Well, now they're feeding all this information into a centralized, state-run repository. Excuse me.
My question is, why are they doing that? What's the purpose behind this?
Well, the official purpose I was explaining was that it's for example, the school lunch programs. When here's the hook: the Department of Agriculture, with the. I mean, we all heard about the scandals going on with the school lunch program. Here they have a situation where they said, well, they want to be able to report how many students are receiving free or reduced meals. So you need to know my daughter's age, weight, height, social security number, her bus route's also included. Bus route. Yeah, isn't this great? It just there's snakes in a barrel. No matter how far you put your hand down, you're going to get bit. So what? And this is what I asked, and this is what I asked the head. I said, so what safeguards presently exist? In the publication that's in the footnotes, On Track Developing Students' Childhood Data System, What safeguards your child's data? Memorandums of understanding, policy, and data governance. And this is the actual screen capture from here. That's it. They asked the question, what administrative safeguards ensure the privacy? MOUs, data governance structure, and written policies. Policy? Policy? Policy can change with the stroke of a pen. Policy can be changed whichever way the wind blows, or who's ever in office. And as we saw the difference between who's in office now and who was in office when I was in the Navy, this is a light years in difference. Okay, so under FERPA, New Jersey statutes, there are no requirements for annual data audits to the depth and frequency private student data is accessed. There are no requirements to give parents an exact list and details of every type of personal data that's being collected. Not only that, there is no congruency in the FERPA, excuse me, in the Open Records Act. Everybody's familiar with OPRA? Okay, and FOIA. Well, the present state law, if I go to my borough hall, and I'm John Q. Citizen, and I ask my borough clerk, I need to see such and such information, he has 7 working days to respond. That's the law. Well, under FERPA, it's 45 days. 45 days. That gives you a lot of time to do whatever you want to do. I'm not saying that there's any malfeasance going on, but I just want to know what, especially since it's in a database, what takes 45 days?
Let me ask you a question.
Sir.
This started when Obama got into office.
Actually, it predates Obama.
Okay, when?
Because it's actually a lot, probably about the mid-1990s, believe it or not.
Because this is something that's been in the works for a long time.
Of course, you got to remember, folks, none of this happens overnight. This is all incrementalism. They start off with one little program, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. I think Ronald Reagan said the closest thing to eternal life is a government bureaucracy, because it never dies.
Who started this? Whose brainchild was this?
United Nations.
As I said before, it's listed in there. It's private and public interest groups that push the formation of all these data standards, centralized data. It's a lot of this is designed to market information to the parents, and also to share information with military recruiters and what have you. But actually, what single entity? Well, let's put it this way. It's not the teachers' union. Believe it or not, Randy Weingarten even pronounced in a public statement she's opposed to the sale and storage of this information. Sir.
Randy Weingarten.
Yes.
When I worked on the census, the last one, 11 years ago. When I worked on the census 11 years ago, we were taught to be very sensitive to people in a non-Christian tradition, specifically Jewish people, who in their census in the 1920s in Europe, not only in Germany, but in many European countries, they had to list with the government their religion, so that their extermination was facilitated by the occupied government, which occupied, for example, Belgium or France or wheresoever. They had to list it on their census. We had great difficulty in establishing relations with Switzerland in the 1890s or something, because every passport, they insisted, had to state whether the person was Christian or Jewish, and the United States government refused. We were at loggerheads, and we never gave up. This is hideous, and I think we can turn to that particular group, which doesn't take too many things lying down, as a great hope to really fight this with us.
Well, your point is definitely well taken. Where there's registration, there's a record. Where there's a record, there's someone who's either an opportunist, whether it's for good or not good. And if they have access to information, the potential to abuse it is always there. And I'm not saying, like I said, the present group are going to do it. I'm concerned about the future. And that's my biggest concern. Yes, sir.
Great, you're a councilman in Englishtown.
That's correct.
did you ever take your opinions about this to your local school board?
I'm in discussions with some key people.
But you didn't present it to the school board.
We are working on some interesting developments. We'll just leave
I
it
don't know
at
what
that.
that means.
It's being worked on. Trust me, it's being worked on.
Okay. So one of the I had the chutzpah, and I went to the September meeting of the Belmar School Board. Fortunately, my childhood friend is a commissioner of education in New Jersey, so I dropped his name, and they all had to listen. And I gave a very impassioned, from a retired school teacher, from a recognized for excellence school teacher in New Jersey, very passionate statement. Because that was just 2 weeks after the guy in Maryland, or was that Virginia? Maryland, outside of Baltimore, he was thrown out and arrested.
Oh yes,
Parent.
yes, that's
So
correct. And then the police officer filed a false report.
So I
saying-
opened my premise with, I'm not going to question Common Core.
Right.
Because of what happened to, and I had his name at the time, and I said, because of the parent who dared to question in Baltimore. So I ask you to please hear my statement about Common Core. Now, in preparing the statement, one of the things that I realized is that I had the great fortune of working for a reform movement in education that was national. Guess who sponsored it? Bill and Melinda Gates. In the 1990s, after the publication of Horace's Compromise, which was about a high school teacher who year after year compromised his standards. This was Sizer, Ted Sizer out of Brown. And suddenly there was a movement afoot to reform education in the United States. And it was called the Coalition of Essential Schools. And it was 100% financed by Bill and Melinda Gates. All right? And here we are 15 years later, or 20 years later, and Bill and Melinda Gates have the knife in the back of that movement. Now you can't even find, hardly find, a coalition of essential schools, a highly successful model for parental involvement, for high achievement, a la Dewey, learn by doing, student and faculty-run schools, highly successful. The top schools in the nation came out, record, year after year, from this reform movement, and then Bill and Melinda Gates later on did this. All right. Now, one of the things I realized is that when I trained to be a teacher in New Jersey, there was a reform movement already on. That was after the Bush and the Governor's Conference.
Oh, yes.
We had all new standards in New Jersey, and here's the good news about Common Core. It's going to end up exactly like that last reform movement. Why? Because the students are going to be assessed. And they're going to be assessed starting this year.
Yep.
And when the assessments come in, the mice go running. They go running, they start with the parents, they start with the school districts, and it goes right up to the governor's office, and everybody runs away from it. Seriously. Because the last reform movement ended that way. It was only 15 years prior. They never got to the full assessment of it. So let's talk about longitudinal studies. Okay, longitudinal data they collected.
Yes.
They can't possibly do it. And longitudinal studies are the only thing that really matter in a reform movement. And they've never been able to hold out, not 5 years. They can't even do a longitudinal study from the 1900s to 2005 on any reform that they've ever done, because nobody puts the chutzpah into it and carries it through. So it ain't going to happen. So that's the good news, is that this is going to self-destruct state by state in only a few years. Now the bad news is, Greg, is the content. Because the content is now being taught earlier. Before this, you had to go to college, you had to go to Harvard or Yale or Brookdale or wherever to get indoctrinated into progressive world.
Exactly.
Now it's starting earlier, so the content is the problem. This is all going to end, and the spineless creatures in every state are all going to run after the tests come out. Because I live in Belmar, and we went, in 2 years, we went from 68.5% proficiency to 21.8%. Next year, our school will be 75% Hispanic. And now this new curriculum is going to hit with the standards. Now you know how long that's going to take when our school can't even pass the last one. And now they have a new assessment, forget it.
Well, see, like I said, the focus, and I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised. But the point is that the infrastructure that they have set up in the Department of Education exists. It's now. It's real. The 150 data points, which is aligned to the federal model, is real. It exists. And the states, the State Department of Education has a specific portal where the schools have to report in a standardized format all this information I'm outlining here. So they're doing it right now. Yeah, and I'm just saying. So it's like, so even though, right?
Now they're doing it.
But even though, and I'm telling. Once it gets created, you can't. You just don't. They just don't flip a switch and turn these things off. It's like trying to turn an aircraft carrier.
When most of the test results come in and we're all failing in the state, they'll pull the cord, and you know it.
Right, but they'll still be collecting the personal data on all the kids. That's going to be the legacy of this. Now, anyhow, and here's this is great. Now, we just talked about Bill and Melinda Gates. Should the parents be concerned about security breaches? Well, the In Bloom privacy and security policy says specifically that you're not going to believe this. According to In Bloom's privacy policy, the company is not responsible for security breaches, though it'll use reasonable administrative, technical, and physical safeguards to ensure student records are kept private. Basically, they can't guarantee the information will not be intercepted when it's transmitted. They even admit it. They will not be responsible if the information that they get is intercepted when it's transmitted.
All they did was put a disclosure in to say we're not responsible.
Right.
If it
And unless you get some sort of federal lawsuit, some sort of crazy class action lawsuit, there is no way you're going to be able to see what's going on behind the curtain at In Bloom. It's not going to happen. That'd be like me trying to go to a local business or a corporation. Let me see your books, and if they're a private entity, it's not going to happen. Get a warrant. Oh wait, that's right. Warrant. Think about that for a second. We're going to get to there. So anyhow, so parents cannot use open record access for the records at In Bloom because they are third-party access, and the parents and students would have to file a lawsuit and go up against billionaire Bill Gates, who has bigger pockets. So what about constitutional rights? Well, we know, folks, it's unconstitutional for local, state, and federal entities to access private documents without a warrant. We all know the Fourth Amendment, so there's no sense in me repeating it here. But it's a warrant. A federal agent cannot stop you on the street, or a local police officer cannot stop you on the street and ask you for your papers. That's against the law.
Not yet.
Stop and frisk.
Yes, ma'am.
Can't we do something with the ACLU? This is something they should be.
Well, there are lawsuits. There are lawsuits being filed. I don't know exactly what the magnitude, but there's. Well, EPIC, the electronic privacy, epic.org, they lost their case so far. Their motion was turned down. Their case was turned down in the federal court when they tried to challenge the data policy change by the Department of Education, changing the FERPA law, the FERPA policy, excuse me. So it's interesting. And of course, and that's the thing, everybody says, oh, you people are conspiracy theorists and this and that. It's not the entire government doing these things. It's not the entire Department of Education. You know as well as I, all you need is a few well-placed people in the right position at the right time who are being backed by the certain groups or whatever, whether they're business, private business or whatever, to flip the switch. And the policy changes. And then, of course, as I said here, and then think about this too, it's also a Fifth Amendment issue. So if I don't want to talk to you about my religious affiliation, well, too bad. You got to tell us. So what are they going to do? Are you going to withhold my child's graduation or my child's diploma? Are you going to withhold their participation in school programs because I don't want to cooperate? Well, and we know this too. 200 plus years, the states and the people had the first and final say, but not until the federal government. And we all know this guy, Mr. Peanut, created the Department of Education. And of course, when that was created, in the words of Patrick Henry, I smell a rat. And Well, what's the Department of Education done for the past 34 years? 1979, I don't know if you folks knew this, 1979 had a budget of $14.5 billion, 4,000 employees. Today, $69.8 billion, 5,000 plus employees. What are the results?
Where do I apply?
The results: 2 out of 3 8th graders can't read proficiently and will never catch up. 2/3 of 8th graders scored below proficient in math. 75% of students are not proficient in civics. 3 out of 4 8th through 12th graders can't write proficiently. And 1.1 American students drop out of school every year. I am not making this up. This is all documented. You can access the links afterwards.
It's better than I thought.
Ouch. So 1.5 trillion with a T. Think about that. 1.5 trillion tax dollars that could have gone to cancer research, that could have been used to build homes, that could have been used to create jobs, that could have been used for real education purposes. Out the door. What do we get? Back in the day, our public school students trailed their peers. Our public schools, they led everybody across the world. World War II, the United States had the #1 high school graduate rate in the world. Today, we're 22 of 27 industrialized nations. American students ranked 25th in math, 17th in science, 14th in reading. And the end of the 8th grade students are 2 years behind in math compared to their peers in other countries, and that the U.S. ranks 13th against other countries with 25 to 30-year-olds who have completed some college or coursework. This is really disturbing information.
We're not throwing enough money in.
But yes, well, funny you should say that. Remember, bureaucrats and lobbyists are saying, hey, give us all your private information and give us billions more, and we promise we'll get it right this time. Give us billions more. Well, if you believe that, I've got a bridge for you.
I own it already.
Well, should we trust this government with private student data? Well, let's see. The National Security Agency? The DEA? The fact that the IRS spying on people in groups? Gee, what group are they spying on? Got a yellow flag? Oh, wait, that's a conspiracy theory. What's the matter with me? Well, all I can say is that immediate legislation is needed to halt the federal invasions of privacy, data mining, and tracking, especially in light of the recent and numerous breaches that have happened at the government level, and at the private level, too. How many times do we hear about credit card companies losing information, or private companies losing private information? Hello? So, we talked about Governor Christie before. The legislature just had their chance over the summer. And I don't know if you saw the headline, Christie vetoes sociological strip search bill. What they introduced in the House and the Senate was a bill that was going to basically mirror the federal law, the student privacy law. By the time they got done with it, it was basically out the door. And it was enabling the schools to administer questionnaires to students about things like sexual activity, drug use. Do your parents own guns? What kind of drugs would you like to, not what you like, I'm sorry, do you use, or have you ever encountered this? So basically they were asking students without the parents' knowledge.
So they're spending a lot of time getting this research done, and they're not educating.
No, but
because they're interrogating the students.
Correct. Right.
So the students are not learning as much as they were before
because you're taking 2 hours out of their life, right? 1 to 2 hours, right? And asking some really, really personal questions. And it's like, I really like this. And this is what Governor Christie said. I recognize that surveys may help identify serious issues affecting students. However, this bill imprudently decreases parental involvement in a child's educational development. I believe a parent's legitimate interest is to make an informed decision before their child is exposed to sensitive content, and this outweighs the desire to make survey administration more convenient. So he vetoed the bill. Thank goodness.
Well, his own children would have been under that.
Correct.
His own kids who were young would have been there.
And I'm telling you, you're only as smart as your advisors. And I just feel at my gut level that there's been a lot of people at the top level that were sold a bad bill of goods. That's just my gut feeling. And this is evidence of one of those things where the right decision was made. So what we got to do? Hey, look, I say we need a parent-student bill of privacy rights that all schools must provide a comprehensive listing of all reports and types of data kept on students. We got to improve and align the parental student waiting period from FERPA from 45 days to the Oprah standard, 7 days. Because if something's a foul, if you think you smell a rat like Patrick Henry did, then you've got 7 days to comply. 45 days leaves a lot of time to fix and tie up loose ends if there's something that is not right. Sir?
When Christie first got into office and Brett Schundler didn't accept the money or fill in the paperwork for the government to get this, was this part of all of that?
I don't know. I
Do you
don't
think maybe
know.
Brett Schundler didn't like it and that's why he deliberately...
I don't know. I can't speculate. Don't know. But anyhow, so I think also included in this, and correct me if you think this is wrong, I think we should have a comprehensive report, because you can get your TRW and see who's accessed your credit report, right? Well, then why can't we know the name and title of the person, the dates of the access, and the reasons for the access, and an audit of data transaction that must be Oprah ready to all records during working hours? Like I said, you can access your credit report. You can see who's looking at your background. How come we can't? The parents have to get involved. Like I said, this will be included in the slides. I'm going to send the link out for here. But basically, and mandatory training for the employees, the contractors, everybody, what they have to, what they have to learn and understand to manage the student data. And we'll go through all. We can talk about this at some other later. But the point is that the protection of pupil rights, the federal code, the federal law right now, this presently, federal law says it's banned. You can't, establish or collect political affiliations, mental or psychological problems, sex behavior and attitude. These are things that you just shouldn't be inquiring about unless there's something, wrong in terms of law enforcement situation or something that's, somebody's a danger to something. Anyhow, and the other thing too is, yes, like you were saying before, we should be able to review and opt their children out of any Common Core curriculum using the protection of pupil rights law, and that New Jersey should withdraw from Common Core, not only because of its data mining, but because there have been minimal studies as to how much it's going to cost. Right now, Wisconsin's spending $250 million, plus $22 million a year to conduct the annual Common Core tests. And then, why can't they permit the use of paper-based testing? The kids are going to have to double up on tablets and computers when they take the Common Core tests, the PARCC exam. That's just going to be associated with that. And of course, the opt-out should be allowed to have their names published in honor roll, school yearbooks, and plays, because the present system it punishes opt-outs. I put some links to some useful links about data mining and Common Core in the back of here. And last but not least, think about this. Parents shouldn't be manipulated or coerced into surrendering their constitutional rights of their children or the parents once that child crosses the threshold of a school. It's not what this country is founded upon. It's not what we believe in. It's just not right. And for what? You're going to sell the student data for $1? No, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. That's all I have for right now. Thank you. Do you have any questions? Well, the Federal Department of Education. Well, if I ran a business for 34 years and lost $1.5 trillion, I don't think I'd be in business. But wait, businesses don't have a ready supply of taxpayers supporting them. So it's a never-ending cycle. Sir, in the back.
Are there any bills now in the legislature against this?
I'm sorry?
Are there any bills now in the legislature?
Stay tuned in the next 3 to 4 months. Sir. Ma'am.
How can we do something on the local Board of Ed level?
You need to go to the local Board of Education. You need to ask them how much are they spending on the infrastructure costs to administer the PARCC exams. You want it to the penny? Or did they pass the readiness test? Because right now they're giving all the schools a readiness test. What your technology infrastructure is like. Can you do this? And that's the other thing too, folks. We're all paying the bills for the school systems in like Camden and in Hudson County. Okay, they're not. And I'm not saying that I'm not saying this to be mean, but the point is that they've got, how many billions of dollars do they dump into the Abbott district with no improvement? None. So, yes.
My daughter goes to Jackson Memorial.
Yes.
And they already have already the English class
Okay.
implementing it, and there's a lot of they're taken from articles and they're teaching persuasive writing, and they're using very liberal sites doing it.
Of course.
And I talked to the curriculum coordinator in the English for the whole district.
And they said you have no choice, right?
And she says, well, we think it's great. And I said, I want to look at the book, and she let me have it over the weekend, but they're still going to do it. They only did it like 2 or 3 times. It's like they broke it down through the marking period on writing.
Okay.
I don't know how much more they're going to do on that.
The statement was that her children are using the English books right now, and it contains, basically objectionable material, very politically left-leaning material. Exactly.
And what can I go to the board and say to them that I'm offended by this book? What can I want to know. I've never gone to a Board of Ed meeting, and I want to say something.
You go to them with the facts, and the facts is if it goes, you have to use the same tactics that they use against people that believe in the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. You have to tell them that it's against my religious beliefs, it's against my political beliefs. It's diametrically opposed to the Constitution. Find those hooks, find those legal hooks in there, and say this is not what we should be teaching. And see, this is the thing. Once they took the money from the federal government, they're on the hook now to put this curriculum. And it's basically like 75-80% Common Core and 20% local home rule. But the home rule is not tested. It's all in the Common Core test. So whatever you want. So even if you try to get that changed, it's not going to make a difference on the test itself.
Carol? Carol?
Yes, ma'am.
I know a couple of teachers who are disgusted with it. Yes.
She says there's a couple of teachers disgusted with it, sure.
They have more work now than ever, and they said they can't even go to their superiors and complain about it. What can teachers do?
Well, I don't represent the Board of Education. Like I said, I'm a private citizen, first, and a councilman second. And the point is that there are whistleblower laws in New Jersey that protect whistleblowers if there's something afoot. The problem is that I think there's been some instances where this has not worked out for people that try to blow the whistle on these things. So it's not a good situation. But there's more. But the more people that get involved at the parent level, the better off those teachers will be to be able to then stand up and make a stand. That's we're being told to wrap up. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Greg. Well, they're hitting us with everything they got. We have to stay strong, so thank you, Greg. We got a few things we have to talk about, including, can we all sing Happy Birthday to John? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Joan. Happy birthday to you. Okay. We're going to take a really short... No?
I'll just go for it.
Okay, we're going to go for it. Dan, come on up. Dan's got a few things he needs to talk about.
Thanks. We have an 8 o'clock limit, so real quick, I want to raffle off this book. Where's my book? Here it is.
You have a receipt to prove it's yours?
Yes, I do. This book is called The New Founders. Sorry. And it was written by Joseph Connor and Michael Duncan. And it's a great idea. It's a fiction. It's about what if George Washington came back today and met some people in Philadelphia and what he would do. It's a very interesting concept. I'm not going to get into it. We may have him come speak at our December meeting. But either way, I'm going to raffle off this book right now.
I got it!
No, you don't.
Is that my number?
It is.
My number, it's my birthday.
And the number is 278275. Who got it? 275. Come on up. This is there's a conspiracy going on here.
You went 3 times.
She hit 3 times.
You gotta pay me off.
That's it.
I will. I'll pay you later.
Oh my gosh. Give yourself a hand.
I was meant to have it.
You were meant.
I was meant.
Okay. I also brought
You're not
back.
going to invite me anymore.
No, I'm not.
You're going to not let me in the door.
I shouldn't. I also have Bill O'Reilly's Killing Lincoln. If anybody would like to borrow it, I've read it. We keep bringing the books back as we read them.
That's my book.
This is the one. This is the one that Joan brought back. And if anybody would like to borrow it, it's up here. I'll just leave it here.
We're starting a library now.
We're starting. We actually probably are starting a library. Congratulations.
There you go.
How about that, huh? Real quick, there's an effort across the state to unite. There's 3 different efforts going on. We're working closely with the Middlesex Tea Party.
Come on, guys!
And the West Jersey Tea Party. We're kind of like an informal partnership with these 3 other 2 groups, and we're possibly going to be joining with the Greenwich Tea Party. It's just sharing information. We all seem to have the same political philosophy and goals, so that's why we're doing it. It's nothing formal. We're just going to work together. There you go. I have some Common Core handouts. If anybody would like to see me, it has those 10 questions that Denise was talking about. They're great 10 questions for your school board. They cannot answer them. You're free to take one, and maybe I will just mail out the file on an email, and you can print them out yourself. That's basically it. There's a lot more to cover, but we're kind of, time is it's killing us here. So there you go.
Okay. We need some music. Okay, folks. Thank you, Dan, always. Okay. All right. Guys, when we have somebody up here, please, can we give them their attention? Please. Okay, we have Diane Sear here. Diane, good race. Thank you. Okay, Steve, we don't have, sorry, Diane, we don't have any time.
There's 3 minutes at the end.
Thank you. Steve, come on up, please.
Who else has to go?
I'm sorry? We got a few people, so take
Okay. Happy November, everybody. November is a pretty great month, and we have a couple very important dates, not just this November, but every November. And one of them happens to be just a few short days away, this being the 7th. We are 4 days away from the day that I asked my wife to marry me. It happens to coincide with Veterans Day. I would like all of our guys and gals that served in our military, please stand up so we can recognize you. Thank you very much. Thank you for your service. Certainly underappreciated in today's world. Another great thing that happens to be going on, just about 12 days from now, is another special anniversary. Something that happened 70 years ago. That's 150 years for those of you in Rio Linda. Anybody who knows what happened 150 years ago on the 19th? Gettysburg Address, right. Gettysburg Address, long considered to be one of the best speeches given ever, not just in American history, but around the world. That particular day, Abraham Lincoln went to Seminary Ridge and surveyed the battlefield and where all those men had fought and died bravely. And at that point, he was of course overcome. There was a 2-hour ceremony where one of the greatest orators of our nation at the time, Edward Everett, most of us are like, who the heck is that? It's not another one of those things that's not in Common Core. They're not teaching about Edward Everett, believe me. He gave a 2-hour speech, very little notes, just stood there and rambled on for 2 hours, and we don't know anything about it. However, 272 little words later, Abraham Lincoln spoke for 2 minutes, just a little over, and this speech is now considered to be one of the best in the free world. And I'm sure that a few of you could probably recite it with me. 70 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation conceived in liberty, dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place. I used to have it memorized.
Getting older.
I did. For those who here gave their lives that that nation might live, it is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men living and dead who struggled here have consecrated it far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they have fought here, have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to the cause for which they gave their last full measure of devotion, that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and that that government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall not perish from the earth. Amen. I think it's just fitting that we recognize that in our veterans on this particular day. Of course, we have a lot to be thankful for this coming season. I had a longer speech, but Thanksgiving, of course, is still Thanksgiving, thankfully. I have an interesting little thing that's going to take too long to go over, but at some point, if the government continues to go down the road it is now, it may be someday known as Atonement Day, as we look back at the poor treatment that our pilgrims placed upon those poor Native Americans. And of course, we will have to pay atonement for all of our sins, and the government will continue to take more and more power from us, as we heard from Common Core. And you think of what is that really all about? It's about power. It's about control. You think Big Brother was just a fictional thing, so are some of these other things we talk about as kind of a joke. But it's getting pretty serious. We talked about the military not being able to go out there and pray in the name of Jesus. We've talked about these men not being able to go out there and actively participate in churches and religious organizations and Tea Party. They have also, as of this year, those incoming students, they have removed from the Air Force Academy students' manual the words, "So help me God." This is not kidding. They removed it for the class of 2017. And of course, they're trying to backpedal, and they're trying to get Freedom of Information Acts and trying to find out what's going on. Do not trust this administration. They are all about belittling our history. They are removing our freedoms. They're removing our faith. And the military is seriously under attack. And you can get that anywhere you want. You can just Google away, talk to military personnel. And those guys that have given their lives for us, I mean, the least they should do is be able to pray to God. Because when those bombs start dropping, they're all Christians, or at least they're all praying. So anyway, thank you for the time, and we'll see you again next month.
I don't know, every time Steve comes up, I learn a lot more. Thank you, Steve. Joe? Thanks, Joe.
My name is Joe Patachniak. I belong to the Central Jersey Rifle and Pistol Club, amongst some other organizations. And while I was at the Veterans Day celebration recognition, which we had about 3 weeks ago, we had the parade going through and wound up at the club, which is, if you don't know, is a very large club, over 3,000 members. We have a junior program there, and what I went to talk to one of the young boys who was a roughly 17, going on 18. At 18, they have to get out of this program they're in. They could start at 10. And while we were at one booth, and I also am a member of Operation Beachhead, which is a disabled veterans group where if you go on the website for Operation Beachhead, They have different activities for the vets, disabled vets, and for disabled citizens also. But the vets, and that includes surfing, skiing, amongst other things. Right now it's ice hockey. I went to my first one. It's fascinating to watch some of these former soldiers. And their wheelchair, and say, how do you go play hockey? You'd have to see it. While we were there at the club, we had one group donate 2 sleds. These are sleds that you can push with your hands and you play hockey on them. They're expensive. That was donated from there. We got another donation. This is a group that's started by a disabled vet. Now, all that, so it come up to this, was at that club. We had the junior program that I found out about from one of the junior members. And it's ages 10 to 18. If you have a child, or a male, female, doesn't matter, a child or a grandchild, and you think there'd be some interest in this, you can see me. And if you have a pen, you can take down the information I'm going to give you right now. 10 to 18, they can start at 10. At 18, they must leave. They can start with a 22 caliber rifle. If you know anything about that, it has no kick, a little bit of noise. It's deadly like any weapon, but they start with that. And they have, the fellow who's running this is a Walter Bachman, who's had his children, they have other children. This has been run as continual. This is nothing new. This has been on and on and on. What they're concerned about is some of the older ones are graduating, and they want to get some new members in also. It's a good program. It teaches you about firearms safety, and one of the members here on this group has won second place in a national competition.
I told you not to mention my name.
And he said, it's quite an achievement. If you've ever shot a rifle, and I have a number of times, it's not as easy as they make it look in the movies. So if you want to have one of your children join, you can see this fella. I'll give you the phone number in a second. They move up from a 22 to the AR-15s. In the news media, they call them the assault rifles. They are not, but they're called assault rifles. They are semi-automatic rifles, is the correct way of saying it. And then the 223s. So Walter Bachman, if you wanted to, you can see me at any time. Unless there's something overriding, I'm at every one of these meetings. And you can talk to any of the members on the board, and they would be able to get a hold of me. Walter Bachman, B-A-C-H-M-A-N-N, he's running the program. 732-915-0239. Or you could email him at waltbach, W-A-L-T-B-A-C-H, @comcast.net. That's for the Central Jersey Rifle and Pistol Club. So they learn a great deal. You don't have to bring your ammo. You don't have to have a gun. They'll provide everything. There may be some, I don't recall, from memory, I don't recall if there's some money involved in it, but it isn't much. So if you have any interest and you'd like to see one of your children learn weapons properly, that's the place.
Thanks, Joe. Okay, we're running really short on time. There are a couple of things. I wanted to try to get Terry up because he and Bill, I'm sorry, were very active in the Belmar election. It didn't go their way. I don't think we're going to have enough time. Maybe we can get you next month. We do have a Christmas Hanukkah party coming up. We made a decision. It's going to be here. And we have a choice. It's about $18. You get either soup or, well, we're going to have soup. You get it, we're going to have, I kind of narrowed it down. We're going to have soup, we're going to have salad. You get to pick 2 of these entries. You can either have chicken, garlic steak, chicken Alfredo, shrimp and vodka penny, chicken marsala, pepper steak, chicken a la fresca, or roast pork loin. You only get a choice of 2. What would you all like?
Now?
Oh, God.
Okay, I'm going to pick How's garlic steak sound?
Wow.
No? Yeah? Okay, garlic steak. And how about,
Chicken marsala.
okay, chicken marsala. Sounds good? Okay. And then we get cookies and brownies with it.
Oh, that's good.
Okay? So bring a guest, bring somebody. It's going to be here. We're going to have this floor open up for dancing. So we'll be here later than 8 o'clock that night. Okay? So come the first Thursday of December. Come with your bells on. Wear red and green. And come to celebrate. Yes. Bring your dreidel. Yes. Okay? So that's the Christmas Hanukkah party the first Thursday of December.
Oh, all right.
Okay? I think we have one more piece of information that came from Harry, and it's pertaining to Common Core again. And there's going to be a seminar Wednesday, November 20th, 7 o'clock at Town and County Restaurant on Route 35 in Keyport. Okay? So if anybody is interested, see Harry. Harry, stand up. And he has these flyers he'll give out.
What is this in reference to?
Common Core. But this is actually going to be about the curriculum.
Yeah. Curriculum.
Okay.
People ask who's behind it, we'll have that in there. It's going to be a 70-minute video presentation. And that's going to be November 20th at
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock. Town and Country Diner on Route 35 in Keyport. Okay? It's on 35 North. It's on the right-hand side.
We have some flyers we'll pass out. John O'Rourke, who once again, John O'Rourke, John, you deserve a lot of kudos because you are getting those letters out. Did anybody get to read John's letter that was in the Asbury Park Press? Okay. Come on up, John. You got something you want to say?
Could you put that information that you just said about on the...
We're going to pass it around, hon.
Yeah. That particular letter, need the microphone. That particular letter I was over at the Greenwich Tea Party on Tuesday night, and we had a fair tax booth there, of course. And Brenda, the leader of the group there, read my letter to the group because I had given out a couple of copies. And the next speaker after me was going to be Congressman Lobiando. And as she read this, instead of supporting, all the president could do was blame the Tea Party and hope that enough spineless Republicans would cave and to the disingenuous threat of a default. And she said, as she read that, she almost cringed because the congressman was coming up next.
That's funny.
Right, John.
John's a warrior, folks. John is a warrior.
Grab on the way out, okay, if you want it.
All right. We're running out of time. Diane, you get 1 minute, really, seriously. But before you come up, Diane, before you come up, again, I want to thank everyone who really worked hard in both of the elections, in Steve Lonigan's election and in this past election that occurred Tuesday. Please don't give up. Let's never give up. Let's.
He also needs help paying off some of the debt.
Steve, there's an email that went out that from Mr. Lonigan asking for some donations if you can. Okay, so I know it's tight for a lot of people, but whatever you can donate.